YouTube? Or?
Yeah, so I'm gonna share it.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to get started. We have a lot of wonderful ground to cover. Please bear with me. I'm new at this microphone thing. My name is Katie Maxwell, and I'm the facilitator with California State Parks, and I want to welcome you tonight to our listening session for the Pismo State Beach and Oceano Dunes Public Works Plan listening session. And we have a couple of things to cover just before we get started. We have a media coverage. We have live streaming at the mic here. So in order to make sure we have everyone have the opportunity to present your comments, we're going to give everyone 2 minutes to speak. So we're very excited about getting started. So I'm just going to say a few things, and then we are going to have Lisa Monget, our State Parks Director, have opening remarks, and we're going to have a presentation from State Parks staff about the history of the Pismo State Beach and Oceano Dunes State Beach Vehicular Recreation Area, and then we're going to open it to public comment. So this is the first of many community and stakeholder engagement meetings California State Parks will hold during the process of developing the Public Works Plan. This plan will include projects and programs to enhance visitor experience, improve park operations, and support environmental protection programs. So the goals of tonight's meeting are to facilitate an ongoing conversation between state parks, visitors, stakeholders, and the community about this Public Works Plan. So we want to learn about your desired visitor experience. We want to hear tonight from you about what you enjoy doing at the State Beach and the State Vehicular Recreation Area. What facilities and programs do you enjoy? Is there a type of recreation or experience that you'd like to see in the future? And in addition, we also want to know about current issues. For tonight, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to hear from you. So we're going to be, we can answer some questions, but we're also going to be preparing a frequently asked questions document that will be a living document that will be provided on a future project website. And so if there's something that we cannot answer for you tonight, we will be including that in the frequently asked questions and putting that up on the website too. And also we have a sign-in sheet in the back, and if you are interested in receiving information about meetings like this, please make sure you write your name and your contact information so that we can either send you a letter or email you updates. And that's in the back where when you first came in. If you'd like to have a couple of minutes to speak tonight, we have a speaker card. Deb, do you want to hold up the speaker card? It's yellow. If you could please fill one of those out, write your name legibly so I can say your name without too much hesitation on my part. And we will call your name up and you'll have a chance to speak. And also we have a email address. And an email address you can submit any comments or questions, and that's going to be open to the length of the project. And that email address is on the public notice, which is also in the back. So please take one of those public notices. And also please help yourself to beverages. And we're going to be taking one break at 8 o'clock. Restrooms are in the back. So if you go straight back here and to your right, you'll find the restroom. And so I wanted to, this meeting it's been a long time coming. It's had a lot of help putting it together. I'd like to acknowledge State Park staff. If you could stand up. Thank Thank you very much for all of your help in putting this meeting together, and we're also going to be seeing them a lot in the future. And also want to acknowledge the elected officials. Thank you very much for attending tonight. And without further ado, I'd like to get started. Thank you for being so much.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Monget. I am the director for the Department of Parks and Recreation for the state of California. Before we begin, there were a few empty chairs up here. We're a very friendly group, so if you'd be more comfortable sitting, we also are trying to find more chairs for those of you that are standing in the back, because it's going to be a long evening of conversation, so we'll see what we can do to make you more comfortable. First of all, I just want to say thank you so very much for coming. Whenever we have any sort of public engagement meeting, I worry that no one's going to show up. It goes back to all of my high school insecurities from the 80s. So just thank you very much. We know that your time is very important. You have other things, and some of you have traveled from some very long distances. So just know that we appreciate it. I'm encouraged because the fact that you made it a priority to be here tells me that maybe we've been successful in reaching out and convincing you that you have a very important seat at the table as we think about the future of these parks. The Department of Parks and Recreation for the state of California, I'm assuming that you've been out here living your life, so you haven't been tracking very closely what we've been up to. But since I've got you for a moment, I want to share with you that a Blue Ribbon Commission was established several years ago. It was called the Parks Forward Commission. And they did a top-down review of our organization. They also made many, many recommendations about how to improve California's park system and the organization overall. They released a report in the winter of 2015 that made many high-level recommendations, and we have taken them very, very seriously. The governor established a transformation team, and this was a team of people that were directed to really design some specific initiatives that were able to achieve a lot of these priorities that were established through this Parks Forward report. One of them was modernizing our organization, so a reorg of a very large governmental entity, which is not easy, but our charge was also to not do it just by whiteboarding it in a stuffy building in Sacramento, but our charge was to actually engage with the public and also have engagement meetings internally. We learned a lot through that process. Not only did it inform and really change kind of our thinking about our organization, and I think a lot of the people in this room actually participated in some of those meetings, and they know by talking to us that they actually changed a lot of how we hold these public engagement meetings. We've learned that it's really important to get out in front of you before we get wedded to any one particular path. So if you are here expecting us to sunshine a very detailed public works plan, you're going to be disappointed. But I hope that you know that it is a very high priority to us. I've learned that it's human nature that if we go off, especially as a long organization, and put a lot of time in going down a particular path, we start to hear all of your feedback through that lens and through that prism of how does it impact the plan that we've already developed. So it's very important to us that we get out in front of you early. Do not feel that this is your last time to talk to us. We view this as very much the initiation of a dialogue with all of you. I know that there have been lots of conversations that have happened at the local level, but it is very important that we've got so many people from Sacramento. I think the issues that are here are very sensitive. People are very passionate about the recreation here. It is part of a long legacy of many families. We recognize that we are a very important part of the air quality out in this community. We also recognize that we are a very important part of the economic landscape of this community. We also know that we have a very, very successful program when it comes to protecting endangered species such as snowy plover. So all of these dynamic things that have been happening here, we found, I've been with parks for about 4 years, and when Oceano Dunes comes up, we talk about them in isolation about each individual topic. But we have not yet, for decades, really had a comprehensive conversation in the way that we're planning to do here today and initiate today. You may not know this, but both Pismo Beach State Park and Oceano Dunes SVRA operate under a general plan that was put in place in the mid-1970s. Now, a general plan for us is very important. that is really kind of, we have a public engagement meeting, and we all kind of collectively agree on how these parks are going to be used, what types of recreation, whether we're going to have camping, where we're going to have camping. And all these decades later, we still look to that document as a guiding document. We also are operating under a coastal development permit that we've worked out through with the Coastal Commission. And that was established in 1982, and that was also decades old. And so given all of the time that's passed, it seemed like a perfect time for us to really sit down and kind of reset and have this comprehensive conversation. The public works plan, we envision that these two parks will still operate under the general plan, but that this public works plan will be an additional plan that gets far more specific. And we can talk a little later about what that means. The public works plan that we're going to develop, it'll take about 1.5 to 2 years. We'll have several meetings with you. It will require the approval of the California Coastal Commission, and that will involve, I'm sure, a public meeting. We also, no plan gets implemented without the required environmental reviews, and so that will also be a public meeting. So this is not a one-time meeting with you. This is very much going to be a dialogue, an ongoing conversation, and a journey for all of us. It's not typical that a director of the department would come out here to one of these meetings, but I really thought that it was important for me to be here in person on the very front end of this, so I could hear you personally, rather than having things kind of filtered up through the chain of command of 10 layers between me and you. The governor just appointed our deputy director of off-highway vehicle recreation, who's Matt Fuzzi, who's down at the end here. Matt brings over 30 years of experience in our organization. Most recently, you served in an acting capacity for a little over a year now, Matt. So he operates he's the deputy director of the off-highway vehicle recreation division. Prior to that, he was the district superintendent a little north of you, of the Monterey district, for how many years would you say? 11 years, and he worked his way up through the organization. You were a lifeguard back in the day. So Matt brings a lot of expertise. Tara, the smart person on my left, Tara is our chief counsel, and she often sits next to me so she can kick me to make sure to keep me out of trouble. So with that, I think I'll speak a little more, but I really want to save as much time as possible for all of you folks. You may have heard Katie talk about frequently an FAQ, so let me tell you why we do that. We've found a lot of times, some of you may have questions, some of you just may have comments. But we're going to learn from you, and it'll make us go back and think about the information that we need to provide you. We have found that it's best to really kind of write that out, and we put a frequently asked questions area together on our website. That seems to have been very effective. Also, we will hand out a website or an email address for you. Just know that that does not go into the ether. We actually go through all of those, and we read them, and we talk about them. So for any of you that are either too shy to speak today, or maybe tonight you wake up in the middle of the night with a thought that you wish you'd shared, know that this is not your last chance to do so. So thank you so much for coming. Everything's on the table that we'd like to hear from you, and we look forward to the conversation, and this won't be the last time that you see me. And thanks so much for the staff that pulled all of this together, and thank you for the local staff who've been working, tirelessly to make sure that these forms of recreation are available to everyone. And I'm sorry it's taken us so long, kind of at the top levels in the department, to really kind of come out here and spend some time with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'd like to introduce Daniel Bronson.
Can everybody hear me? All right. Well, good evening. Tonight I get to present to you the dynamic history of Oceano Dunes. This first slide, we're actually gonna go a little bit big picture so we can get a sense of place, and then I promise we're gonna come back down into the parks. The Guadalupe Napomo Dune Complex is comprised of approximately 18 miles of coastline and 22,000 acres of dune and dune habitat. Oceano Dunes District is comprised of Pismo State Beach and Oceano Dunes State Vehicle Recreation Area. Located at the northernmost end of the dune complex, the SRA occupies approximately 7 of the 18 miles of coastline and 3,600 of the 22,000 acres of dune habitat. Now, when we talk about the dynamic history of this land, we have to acknowledge that this applies not only to its ever-changing windblown landscape, but also to its cultural evolution. Throughout its history, it's been a place to live, a place to work, and a place to play. The Chumash were the first known inhabitants of this land for more than 10,000 years ago. They established their villages in more stable environment landscape to the east, and utilized the dune environment and coastal water resources for food and gathering tule and willow to construct their homes, also called apse, similar to your picture here. It was common for them to construct more temporary huts closer to the ocean to store their daily finds, which could have consisted of shellfish, pismo, which is tar, and olivella shells to make shell bead money, pictured at the top of the screen. They would spend time in these huts to prepare and transport these items back to their villages. During the Spanish expedition, Don Gaspar de Bartola and his explorers entered California in 1769, making their way north to writings. We know that they lived or camped in these dunes for some time. Their experiences inspiring them to name the area just south of the Oceano Dunes, Oso Flaco. The Dunites were a colony of free-thinking, artistic-minded folks who began inhabiting the dunes in the late 1920s, with the largest occupancy being in the late 1930s. Their common thread was the idea of living off the land in a remote environment. The area of the dunes that they were most drawn to, they named Moy Mel, which is actually Gaelic for lands of honey. They felt this area had mystical vibrations inspiring their creative spirit. The last known Dunite to live in the dunes was Bert Skibick, pictured here. He was well known in the community and lived here until his passing in 1974. Community development. Westward expansion began developing these communities we know today. The railroad expansion through the area brought easier access to supplies and transportation. Oceano was nicknamed the Atlantic City of the West in attempts to draw people for both tourism and community development. Vista del Encanto was planned for the development of Oceano and Grover Beach at the turn of the 20th century. In the 1920s through the 1940s, most of the beach and four dunes was granted to state parks for the development of Pismo State Beach and the Oceano Campground. So we know that the earlier planners of this community foresaw this as a place of recreation and beach living. Most developments would include central gathering locations, such as La Grande Pavilion, pictured here in the middle, opening July 4th, 1906, having a vibrant life until 1922, when it was deemed unsafe and eventually torn down. A good lesson about the dynamic natural forces that have forged this dune complex. This land has also had a rich history of providing a place to work. The Chumash would spend a few days at a time at their beach homes, fishing, collecting and shucking shellfish in preparation to travel back to their villages. Olivella shells were also collected to forge their currency called shell bead money, pictured in the bottom right here. They were the first to cultivate the land, enhancing and maintaining the areas around naturally growing food sources. The earlier settlers were drawn to this community largely for its sandy soils and agricultural opportunities. The plentiful agriculture and access to the railroad provided opportunity for the Pismo Oceano Vegetable Exchange, known as POVI, to be created in the 1920s as one of California's earliest agricultural distributors. Oil exploration came to Oceano, as did many coastal communities. The oil industry saw what the Chumash also saw, which were large deposits of natural occurring products along these shorelines. It came on shore as a hard tar-like mass, which the Chumash called pismo. The Chumash would actually warm it and line their baskets to make them waterproof. Local refineries today process it down for many contemporary uses. The life works of the Dunite colony can be seen in many museums throughout the nation. They were predominantly writers and artists. One of the more well-known Dunites was Gavin Arthur, grandson of President Chester Arthur. Gavin came to these dunes in search of a simpler, less distracted life. Although among the Dunite colony, he certainly received the most guests. Gavin, with the help of his media connections in San Francisco, produced the artist magazine called Dunes Forum. In it, he wrote and shared art, poems, and stories of other Dunites. The painting on the left here is titled Dunescape by Elwood Decker. Hollywood came to the Guadalupe-Napomo Dunes in the 1950s to film the Ten Commandments, and they continue to be drawn here today. The more entrepreneurial businessmen saw opportunities in providing access to the shoreline's plentiful clamming. The Loverns family became well known for their clam taxi, pictured in the upper right. When the tides were low, they would bring their giant clam bell affixed to their beachside market, letting the community know that it was clam harvesting time. The taxi provided an opportunity for folks to harvest the Pismo clams and taxi them back to the market and then eventually home to feed their families. Businesses today focus on providing recreational opportunity in the parks, such as OHV rentals, camp trailer rentals, and home beach tours. These businesses provide significant economic impact in the community, over $10 million in taxable income annually. State Parks employs approximately 161 full-time and seasonal staff. However, the total employment impact for the parks is nearly 2,000 jobs. Early developments advertise this community as the Atlantic City of the West. This land has always engaged people's creativity with its opportunity for recreation. The Shumash Games taught and honed in skills used for hunting and gathering. Although the first noted vehicle came to the beach in 1906 for a rally hosted by the Ford Motor Company, it was decades before vehicles became a common sight. The horse and buggy was the preferred mode of transportation along the shoreline. 1931 did bring the World Land Speed Trials. Thousands of people traveled by train and car to watch these lightning-fast races. Spectators' vehicles parked along the roadway in Oceano, pictured above, is at the intersection of Highway 1 and Pier Avenue. The early days of launching boat by horse-drawn trailer was surely a sight to behold. Those who spent much time in the dunes became masters of the tide. Access to activity mandates this even today. At the end of World War II, brought much opportunity, including surplus vehicles. In the mid-1950s, people like local resident Jerry Miller, inspired by ingenuity and lifelong experience of playing in the dunes, created the first water pumper dune buggy. Buggies such as this became more popular, and by the late 1960s, the drag races just to the north of what is known as today as Oso Flaco became the Thanksgiving tradition. While Oceano Dunes is known for off-highway vehicle riding and camping, when you cruise the coastline on any given day, you will see fishermen, surfers, sandboarders, equestrian riders, dog walkers, kiteboarders, personal watercraft, hikers, birders, and vehicles. The Oceano Dunes is the most popular campground and OHV park in the state of California, bringing approximately $171 million annually in economic impact to San Luis Obispo County. But what truly makes it so popular is the vast diversity of recreational opportunity that is available. The mission of California State Parks is not only to preserve natural and cultural resources, but to educate, protect, and provide outdoor recreational opportunities. With this mission and vision in mind, we turn to state parks for taking ownership and becoming stewards of these lands. State parks began operation portion of Pismo State Beach as early as the 1930s. Pismo Dunes Natural Preserve was established in 1974. State Parks purchased the property known as Oceano Dunes SVRA in 1972, becoming a state vehicle recreation area in 1982. State Park stewardship of Oceano Dunes lands began here. The green area indicated in the map indicates open riding area, prior to 1982 on the left and after 1982 on the right. Beginning in 1982, Parks fenced off 1,500 acres of open riding area, also establishing the non-motorized areas of Oso Flaco and buffer land leases. Vegetation restoration projects began shortly after. The 1960s and 70s have been disruptive to certain areas of vegetation in what is known as Oceano Dunes SVRA and Pismo Dunes Natural Preserve. Learning how to effectively grow vegetation in the dunes took many years of trial and error, and is still subject to natural impacts. The more successful process includes manual straw punching. This helps stabilize the planted area and assists in water retention until plants are established. Parks policy mandates native plants to be established. This requires the gathering of local native seeds and greenhouse propagation. Non-native plants and grasses can cause dunes to grow unnaturally tall and force out wildlife, whereas native plants allows for sand and wildlife movement beneath the bush. The park has been successful in propagating approximately 30,000 native plants per year. Downstream impacts of agriculture and natural processes cause non-native plants and grasses to continue to be abundant, especially in the Oso Flaco area. Parks' efforts to eradicate these and replace them with native plants continues. Since 1982, Parks has increased vegetation by over 600 acres. State Parks works with several agencies, including NOAA, State and Federal Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as our local community tactical-based review team in determining the best practices for managing wildlife in this park. Our practice is to conduct ongoing fish and wildlife surveys to assist in determining the best management practices to protect and preserve species found in the park. Wildlife, including reptiles, mammals, birds, and fish, flourish in and around these parks. Two programs do get notable attention. California State Parks at the Oceano Dunes District has received national recognition from our colleagues for their work in the recovery of our two federally listed endangered species, the western snowy plover and the California least-tern. We continue to meet and or exceed the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's recovery criteria for reestablishing both of these species. Parks' commitment is not only to the natural aspect of the land, but also to the cultural. Working with the most likely descendants of our local northern Chumash is key in protecting their significant history of this land. Most recently, State Parks opened the new Oceano Dunes District Visitor Center to capture and share the natural and cultural histories of these parklands. Many of the recreational opportunities that are available in these parks are a direct result of the established historical activity, which in essence is its culture. It is the experiences and lifestyle that draws locals, Californians, and visitors from all around the world to this land. Managing State Park's largest campground is visibly a complex undertaking. For park visitors, our entry kiosks are the main contact upon entering the park. We will see maintenance staff servicing park facilities, including a lot of fencing. Resource staff may be seen monitoring wildlife and working with maintenance to install projects. Rangers and lifeguards will be patrolling and managing public safety. Interpreters conducting outdoor educational programs. Our visitors will see volunteers doing an amazing job assisting State Park staff as equestrian, OHV, and interpretive programs. Of course, this is what the public sees. There's an entire team who manages our budgets, contracts, planning, and compliance. There are several significant federal, state, and local regulations with which we must comply. Balancing those to ensure compliance can be a feat when they often impact one another. The overriding theme that has led to our success has been community engagement. When there are potential conflicting interests, engaging the community around the issue has helped parks establish operational guidelines to ensure public safety and legal compliance. Everyone has an interest in keeping their recreation opportunities available. Oceano Dunes District truly offers unique recreational experiences and opportunities that are integral to the local economy, history, and treasure quality of life for the citizens of California. State Parks' mission and legislative mandates directs us to balance preservation of this land while providing exceptional recreational opportunities. So if we knew then, in 1982, what we know now with the external development and challenges, how might we have planned this park differently? Thank you. Thank you, Danielle.
So the next I'm going to just give a brief overview of what a public works plan is to help maybe answer some of the questions that you may have before we get started with the public comment period. So the public works plan is not a general plan. It is a plan that will work in conjunction with the general plan. And it is similar, the planning process is similar to a general plan. It includes several public meetings, just like this one, engagement meetings. We'll have a project website that's interactive that will get, we'll put all of our documents on that website for you to look at. There may be surveys, things like that on that website. There's also participation from regulatory agencies and local governments. The Coastal Commission is especially involved. There's also environment assessment of proposed development of activities. So we're looking at projects, potential projects and programs that will have opportunities to enhance visitor experience and to help us meet our environmental compliance and improve the visitor experience. So what I'd like to ask you to do is, in addition to letting us know what your desired recreation experience and your desired experience in the future experience at these two park units, I'd also like to know how you would like us to contact you and get involved. I had a couple of people call me and asked for a different date and time. We'd like to, since we are really interested in keeping close contact and ongoing engagement process, if you could just let me know afterwards what's the best way for us to communicate with you. We have thought of something already. So that's essentially the overview of the public works plan. It's going to, as Lisa said, it'll take 1.5 to 2 years. It will go in front of the Coastal Commission. There will be a public hearing at the Coastal Commission, yet another opportunity for you to speak on it. And it will be reviewed by the Coastal Commission. So next, we'd like to open up the floor for our public comments.
Kate, perhaps I can add one thing that I probably should have made clear in my opening comments, that while we're developing a public works plan and everything will operate under the original general plan from the 1970s, many of you might know that we put a lot of work in developing a dust mitigation plan. That plan was heard before the Coastal Commission in September. They took an action that approved it, but then I think put some conditions and wanted us to come back and discuss it again with them. I believe it's in a February, either a December or February meeting. Just know that we're working very closely with their staff right now to find out if there are components of that plan that we can move forward with in advance of that February meeting. So we're having kind of real-time conversations with them. So during this process of developing the public works plan, it's still very much our intent to move forward with the dust mitigation plan that's been developed. We'll be working very closely with the local dust mitigation experts along with California Air Resources Board. We continue to work very closely with them too. Is there anything else that you would add?
Thank you. I also wanted to include the habitat conservation plan that's been in the works for the last 17 years. That is a document that is a multi-agency document that is also in the draft format too. So all of these planning documents will be working together in coordination. So, so what I'd like to do, if there are no, okay. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to call out the first 3 names, and so we can keep the process going. Everybody has 3 minutes. And if I could ask you to speak clearly and state your name when you come up to the podium. We have a court reporter who greatly appreciate being able to accurately record what you're saying. And I also want to have one ground rule for you to consider. Please keep your comments to a allotted time. I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. So the first 3 people in order will be Michael Bishop, Karen M. White, and Peter Keith. And just before you get started, I just want to let everyone know who's coming up to speak. Around 30 seconds before you start, you'll see, before if the time is up, you'll see a yellow light blinking, and then the red light shows that your time's up.
My name is Michael Bishop. I represent the California Off-Road Vehicle Association and Santa Barbara Four-Wheel Drive Association, and the thousands of families that come to Pismo every year. My history with Pismo started 50 years ago in '67. I showed up at the dunes with a motorcycle, and I rode around in the dunes and really fell in love with the place. My wife went into labor, and I had to get her to Royal Ridley Hospital when my 50-year-old daughter was born. So it's been a part of our family for a long time. She was my only child, but I had several foster kids. I raised the foster kids in the dunes. I taught them how to fix their vehicles. I taught them responsibility. This is way before video games. And we had a really strong family unit. And that's what the dunes is all about right now. If you drive down there on a big weekend, there's thousands of families all together just enjoying each other's company. In '82, when the Coastal Commission decided to do the closure, I had started the Santa Barbara ATV Club, and we had 100 members. I got all of our members to volunteer to start the Pismo State Beach Dune Patrol, and we went out and put signs and fencing. We helped the rangers. We did all non-law enforcement work search and rescue, a lot of that to alleviate some of the pressure on the rangers. There was, the Coastal Commission gave us a 6-month trial, and it worked. And there were no deaths in that 6 months for the first time in many, many years. So they realized what I knew, what my capabilities were. So when the Off-Highway Vehicle Commission was formed in '82, I was one of the first members of that, and I became the chairman of that for 5 years. So I know both sides of that, the whole issue. It's just a really good family recreation. And what's going on now is there's a lot of things that can be changed to make it a lot better and more smooth. And a lot of people that follow me will be giving you ideas for that. Even today, I'm on the board of my Boys and Girls Club in Santa Barbara, and I bring kids up that don't have fathers. And I show them how, teach them how to ride, take them around. They really have a great time, and I give them a positive male influence that they don't normally get. And the dunes offer me that. So I'll just yield my time to a lot of people that want to speak after me. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen White. I am Karen White. My grandfather came to Oceano in 1900 as a claim digger. I've been on the beach all my life. I'm also a resident of Halcyon, which is a federally recognized intentionally formed religious community. I'm also president of the Oceano Community Services District Board of Directors, and through that, also president of the Five Cities Fire Authority. Tonight I'm speaking for myself, not those boys. When I became politically active about 8 years ago, I was told by others in Oceano that beaches and parks was a lousy neighbor. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Oceano, the gateway to the dunes, gets all the noise, traffic, congestion, garbage, and blowing sand from the beach and dunes. Even in Halcyon, on the edge of the OCSD, the sounds of gasoline combustion engines roaring over the sand disturbs the peace. What we in Halcyon don't get is any financial benefit in exchange for the upheaval in our lives. Unlike Pismo and Grover, Oceano is not a city. The sales, transient, and other taxes generated by tourism goes to the San Luis County, not us. Oceano also is recognized as a disadvantaged community, so our tax base does not generate overwhelming funds. That leaves Oceano with unmet needs, unfunded needs, mostly involving fire protection. All Oceano's available tax money barely pays for its share of protection through Five Cities Fire. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Oceano's service district could get 50 cents a year from each of the 2.1 million visitors to our beaches to balance the dirt, car fumes, and garbage these people generate? Oh yes, I know there is no mechanism to allow the State Parks Agency to aid its neighbors, but I also know that is just a matter of political will. $500,000 a year, hell, any amount of extra revenue would make a big difference for Oceano. Like I say, I understand why almost everybody I know feels that beaches and parks is such a lousy neighbor. No, just a lousy portion of Oceano. After all, it was Oceano's beach first. And I believe more and more local residents will urge closure of the beach to traffic because they don't receive anything but sand in their faces from beaches and parks. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Peter Keith.
Good evening. My name is Peter Keith, former council member, mayor of Grover Beach, and planning commission chair. I've been a member of the TRT, which is the technical review team, for 17 years, a founding member, addressing the issue of habitat conservation, etc. So I've heard a lot of debate, a lot of argument, a lot of ideas, and a lot of disappointment. It's been a long, long time since we've been able to since we started talking about habitat conservation. I want to talk about something that's a little different this evening. I have what I consider a unique idea for mitigating airborne sand particles. As we all know, we have Phillips 66 refinery in the south area of San Luis Obispo County. Now, Phillips 66 discharges approximately 1 million gallons of treated water per day. That water is treated as an industrial water source, and it's dumped into the ocean directly off of the dune area. I'd like to remind you that there's also the South County Sanitation District that also flushes, I think, far more treated water into the ocean that's a bit closer to the sand dunes. And by sand dunes, I mean the recreational area. And that effluent is treated to a higher EPA standard. So in brief, my proposal is to mitigate the difficulties, the problems, the health concerns of people downwind by treating the sand with that effluent. That water that's being wasted, the water that's flowing out to sea from these entities, can be used as irrigation. And that irrigation water will do the same thing that rainwater does. It creates a heavy particulate and a heavy sand. And if some of that sand is kicked up into the air, either by strong winds or by recreational activity, then it shortly falls to earth, right back where it came from. Not in the wind, not in residential neighborhoods, and not in people's lungs. So I would propose that the state of California, Parks and Recreation, perhaps take a look at that kind of irrigation. I'm not proposing a specific kind of irrigation. What I am proposing is that there certainly is ample fluid that can be treated to a higher level if necessary to reduce or eliminate flying airborne particulate matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. And can I ask everyone, just in fairness of time, to hold your applause to the end? Next we have Jeff Fluitt, then Patricia Duran, and then Michael, sorry. We're going to confer on this. Go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon, good night, or whatever we are here tonight. My name is Jeff Fluitt with California Four-Wheel Drive Association. We have a long history of keeping the dunes, working to keep the dunes open. Over decades, we've had issues here at Oceano, and they seem to just keep getting bigger and bigger as we move along. Our membership has a lot of people, especially from the Central Valley, that come into Oceano Dunes and come to play in the sand dunes. Talking to my membership, two big things come up. One, that meetings like this come up and they're way over here on the coast after work, and it's hard for them to get here. Maybe have a meeting Fresno area or somewhere more in that area to get the people to actually show up and come to the meetings. The other one is just we keep seeing ever reduced size of the park, and that's the biggest thing they want to keep down is the loss of more acreage. And if we have to close an area for a specific issue, maybe reopen, so there's really no net loss of usage at the dunes. Cal 4-Wheel looks forward to working with this process, and personally, I've been using the dunes since the early 80s. My first trip was before the closure, and my second trip was after. Huge difference. My kids, we would come out here 5-6 times a year. My kids love coming to the beach. The gentleman who talked about family, off-roaders get accused of being a lot of things, but if you really take a look at who they are, go to all the estuaries and look, it's all families. Families spending their weekends together, not watching TV, not playing video games. They're out in nature. So that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Patricia Duran.
Hi, my name is Patricia Duran, and I live in Tacoma. Now, I've heard these stories, it's a family place. You know, we can all enjoy recreation more if we can bring our dune buggies and all that, but it could be a recreational place without the dune buggies. Men can have male, like he said, foster kids, by showing them to go fishing, showing them surfing. There's many recreations that can be done without the dune buggies. I have friends and neighbors, some that have whole houses of HEPA filter to block out this dust problem that we have. Others have moved to Los Osos because their respiratory problems are so compromised. You know, I moved up to this beautiful area about 30 years ago to enjoy clean air, to get away from LA, and here we've violated the state standards, the federal standards. You've seen how many times. You know, why is money a president over our health? But you see these people from Santa Barbara, the Central Valley, they don't have to breathe what they're doing. You know, they're playing in the sand and we're breathing it. And I know state parks, there's beautiful parks all over California. Why is it that they allow this to happen here? You know, so basically you talked about you have a permit. That permit was temporary a long time ago. It was supposed to expire. The easement to come through Pier Avenue Grove, that was all to contain the nuisance. That was a temporary permit. You know, so if you're going through a natural preserve, you're going through a creek. When is that allowed anywhere in California where cars even get stuck in the creeks? So I'm just asking you to please consider our health over finances. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm gonna have to ask the person who wrote this to help me pronounce your last name. Michael Dons? Donna? D-A-H-N-A. Okay, Michael Donna.
Thank you. I'm Michael Dana, and I live in Oceano. I've been going to the dunes and the beach since the early 70s. Back in the 70s, everybody wanted to close the refinery down in the Pomo. They tried for years to shut that place down. I worked there for 10 years. Now it's the dunes. They want to close the beach down. I play on it every day. I'm out there every day. I try to help as many people as we can. My family plays out there all the time, every day. It's a joy just to be out there. We're here to help. We want to pick up garbage. We want to help to keep the beach clean for everybody to enjoy. We got a lot of ideas about adding garbage cans, stuff like that, but we don't want to lose any more area. Since the 70s, we've lost over half of what we used to have. And you separate people out and you have less problems when there's more area. And now it's just all congested, where we need to get more area to spread everybody out. But we that live here try to take care of the dunes. We try to pick up the garbage. We're out there every weekend trying to pick up after some people that do abuse it. They do leave their garbage out there. But we like to work with state parks and how can we prevent it? How do we, make it easier on us that do go out there all the weekends and pick it up? So that's it. I also wanted to say is I've lived here a long time. I enjoy the beach and I'd hate to see it go away. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call the next three names. Ginger Shank, Wendy Reagan, and Chris, another one, Jorga. Was I close? I'll try harder next time. Ginger Shank.
Hi, my name is Ginger Shank. Own two businesses in Grover Beach, live in Rio Grande. I've lived in Oceano right off the Strand Way, lived there about 3 years. I love the OHB Park. It's one of my favorite things about living here. I've lived here for 30 years. I volunteered for state parks. I've helped go out and pull weeds south of the OHB area to help promote nesting for snowy plover. My friend Mark's here, who helped teach me how to drive my Jeep out in the dunes and how to shoot bowls and drag race. And I can't tell you how much the dunes, it's my absolute #1 favorite thing in the world to do. Jerry Miller that you were talking about in the video is a dear friend of mine. He also helped teach me how to drive in the dunes. It was funny, we had a conversation last week at the beach. He just had his 89th birthday 2 days ago, and we got him a cake. And he said, you know, what's funny, Ginger, is I bought my property 60 years ago on the Mesa, about 20 acres. And he said, all my friends said, why are you buying that crap land up there? This is his words. That crap land up there. Nobody wants to buy land up there. It's windy, it's dirty, it's sandy. You couldn't give property away up there 60 years because it's a bad area. Well, it still is. But they've decided, these developers, to put in these beautiful homes and developments and golf courses. The atmosphere hasn't changed. It's still windy and dirty and sandy. It's still not a desirable area. Another girl, a good friend, Natasha Hunt, her family goes back to the early 1800s here. Last week she was going through family journals from 1836. Her family described it as barren waste, had never been met with anything so dreary and windy, and on the sand hills between Oso Flaco and San Luis Bay. This is 1836. It's always been dreary and sandy. It's nothing new. I would be curious to know what the actual medical hospital statistics are for people sick up there with respiration versus other areas. I don't see the statistics. So I beg, if you take any land, please open more back up. We want equal land. When I go out there, the family recreation is unbelievable. This Thanksgiving, there's a group who's just some of my best friends in the world. 3 generations out there. They got their kids, dad, and granddad. They've been going to the beach for 38 years for Thanksgiving. And it's phenomenal. I mean, you don't get recreation like that where the kids enjoy doing something this much with their grandparents. Going hiking and fishing is not nearly going to get the attention out of these kids as that park does. That park is absolutely phenomenal, and I just, please, if you take anything, give us some area back. And I appreciate state parks. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with the park, and I just love it. I can't tell you. It's one of my favorite places in the world. So, that's it.
Thank you, Ginger. Next, Wendy Reagan.
Hi, my name is Wendy Reagan. First off, I'd like to say I appreciate you all coming here and taking comments from us. I've lived in this area most of my life. My husband and I have lived in the Callender Garrett area of the Nokomo Mesa for 30 years, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's the most polluted area just off the ORV area. I also think it's a beautiful area. I think we all have to respect each other, and I understand that there are many people that like to come to the Central Coast and drive on the dunes. My family, my friends, we do not use that area. We hike, we bring our dogs to the beach, we play on the beach, and go in the areas where there are no vehicles. I would just ask that, you listen to the scientific studies that have been made, that you think about more revegetation in the areas that the dust is blowing in, or that it's blowing from. I do support closing some of the area that's causing the most damage to our neighborhoods. It's gotten worse over the last years. Just, I think, with the amount of off-road vehicles that are down there, the trees that are being cut down, and the drought probably has affected it too. But we do, there are people that love living up on the mesa, and we don't all have big fancy houses. We lived there for 30 years, we raised our family, and so I'd like to be able to live there for another, 30 years and let my children enjoy the dunes without quite so much sand blowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, you're gonna have to help me with this one. Chris Jeresa?
Chris Hardy. Probably my writing. So, my name is Chris Hardy. I'm a resident of Napomo for the last 28 years. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to State Parks for all the hard work that you do and enforcing the laws, the balancing that between the environment and the dunes itself. But I am a supporter for all access for everybody. I want access for all. I want access for horses, hiking, for kites, and for off-roading. I want to support no compromise, where if we're going to build a restroom out there and give an acre, we should get that acre back somewhere else. If that restroom's not built, we should get that acre back. For wind fencing, again, I've seen the clear cutting on the Pomo. I've seen the eucalyptus groves disappear, the monarch butterfly habitat disappear out there for homes. I've seen it. Whatever wind fencing or whatever improvements you do to mitigate the dust, keep it off the area that we're riding at. Outside the boundaries. Plant whatever you need to plant to keep down the dust. Just keep it out of the riding areas, please. For my family, it's been a great place. My nephew's coming back from his leave for the Marines towards Christmas. He asked my brother, hey, can we have Uncle CJ take me out to the dunes? And in turn, I'm also putting money back into the Oceano by buying tickets for the melodrama. So it's going to be a great event for him. He enjoys the dunes, he enjoys the melodrama when he comes to visit. Oso Flaco, you guys are doing a great job of Oso Flaco. The lake is tremendous. When I go out there and my family comes to visit from outside the area, that's another area I take them. Another thing I want to see out there is, I know you guys is what type of tsunami warnings you have for the campers. I know you had that before several years ago and it was quite chaotic. What kind of plan do you have for a tsunami warning? Other than that, again, thank you for your job and everybody, the Rangers for keeping everybody safe and no more compromise.
Thank you very much. Next three people, Nancy Bull, followed by Larry Bross, then Patricia Fitzgerald.
Yes, I'm Nancy Bull. I have a nice, easy name, so you can pronounce that. Wasn't that good of me? I've been coming to the dunes for 50 years and I live in Oceano. I live in Oceano on Strandway for the last 25 or so. And the sand and dust is dreadful. The noise is incredible. And people who say, oh, it's been that way forever. It hasn't. I'm sorry. 50 years ago, that was not that kind of traffic. There weren't thousands of vehicles going back and forth. There weren't people all over at all times of the day and night when there's no one else around. There wasn't that kind of traffic. There weren't vehicles and trash everywhere. It wasn't that way. And that development where I am has been there since 1906. So that's not a new understanding. It has become so much worse. It's become a giant trash heap, basically, with no one taking any care or concern about it. And the idea that, oh, we have to have these ATVs roaring back and forth and digging up the sand because it makes so much money for the community is nonsense. Look at all the other beachfront communities up and down this state. Now the rest of them need to have ATVs roaring back and forth, talking about them. and they all seem to manage to do quite well, from La Jolla to Santa Cruz and on up and down. So I think you could do very well economically without the noise and trash that the ATV groups have brought. Indeed, considering the environment, should be one of the first things the state should do, it seems to me. And what kind of environmental consideration are you giving to the dunes, to the people, the animals, anyone there, when you're allowing them to be destroyed by this kind of utilization? One of the first things that was up on your list of things for the state parks to consider is the health of the people. And certainly the health is not being considered by allowing the kind of dust and debris to be thrown into the air and into the community by that utilization. So I certainly urge you to consider some other avenues for recreation on the part of this absolutely wonderful dune area. Very unique and an opportunity for all kinds of recreational use without having to be motorized. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Larry Ross.
I'm Larry Bross, resident of Oceano. I live on the Strand. Over 60 years, I guess.
Hey, will you keep recording this for me? What? Will you keep recording this for me?
This is what I wanted to say. If you look back at the history of the place, when I first came in '65, I was teaching in Palo Alto. I bought a small cabin on the dunes. Pismo Beach, you could get on and ride from Pismo Beach to my cabin in Oceano. And then Pismo shut down the riding. And look at Pismo Beach today, and look at Oceano. Oceano is the forgotten, wrecked place. Community has all the potential in the world. There are enough dunes out there for everybody. What Pismo did is they put up poles, and you could no longer drive into Pismo. Now, I suggest that Oceano, the Oceano community, has no sovereignty. It doesn't have a beach. It has a road, -1. And you have 101, then you have 1, and that beach road is -1. Where is the southern access? It hasn't rained yet this year. Wait till the rains come. They'll close you down like last year, or maybe a month or so. There should be no creek crossings. There should be a beach for the community of Oceano like every other community in the world. And it can be done. It can be done. We have a new freeway exit that would take you right down to the refinery. We've studied this. We've spent $250,000 for studying southern accesses. Where are they? The future of this community, the future of driving on the beach, if you want to drive on the beach, with global warming, you have to stop creek crossings. Now, I think you're doing a pretty good job of preserving our estuary at this point. You can do a better job of creating a southern access so that all of us finally are creating an access. You know, what you have here in Oceano is a temporary permit for 35 years. Temporary.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, sir. Your
Thank
time
you.
is up. Thank you. Next, Dustin Hanning, followed by Patrick Fitzgerald. Dustin Haney, Patrick Fitzgerald,
Hello, I'm Dustin Hanning. I am a resident of the Napomo Mesa. I moved to Napomo Mesa for the dunes. My family and friends are users of the dunes. I am all for figuring out dust mitigation, but dust is not only coming from the dunes. The ag that is along Highway 1 is also a big producer of dust. And then the nature of the dunes is to be dusty in general. You can tell from the first closure of the park, if you go down to Guadalupe or any of that area, that the winds are not affected from the OHV area. That's extremely dusty and dirty, such as the nature of the dunes. As far as changes in the park, I would like to have a faster access for people that have yearly passes or that already have their passes sold, so we wouldn't have to wait in lines to get back into the park, coming in and out. I would like there to be better signage at pole 2, that there's no riding past pole 2 towards the entrance. And then as far as the bird mitigation goes, you guys do a great job of that, but I'm curious as to the two markers that you guys closed, if it really makes that big a difference when there's a snowy plover population, the extreme population all the way down to Lone Pock. I do a lot of work down there. The snowy plovers down there are just, they're overrunning the beach. And that's all I have to say today.
thank you. Patrick Fitzgerald.
Hi, my name is Patrick Fitzgerald. I'm a resident of the Strand area, close to Pier, and basically I'd like to thank the state parks for the work they've been doing, and I appreciate the dust mitigation program that we've established, and hopefully it'll go on and work even better than it has. And I think our main concern in my area is the access to the beach and access to the dune area comes through Pier Avenue and Grand Avenue. And I feel that we have to do something about a southern access to be able to get into the dune area of the people that use that as a recreation area. I understand that the families, it's a very good family enterprise and all that, but the people that live here 12 months out of the year have to put up with the vehicles that come to the dunes from Pier Avenue and Grand Avenue. And I think that's the most important thing we have to work on, at least in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nick Lelaine, followed by Bill, another name, sorry, Schlittrat, and then Jan Ask.
My name is Nick Olana, and I represent the Pismo Dune Riders. We have 17,000 members. They mainly consist of off-road enthusiasts, but there's also people that windsurf, jet ski, surf, and fish in our group, a very large number of them. The off-road area is primarily used on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, you have people that fish out there and surf out there. So it's very important to keep Pier or Grand Avenue open, so the people that live in those communities can still access the beach and the ocean and use it the way that they do. The other problem that I really have is one of the ways that the parks is operating. Use the word revegetation. These are dunes. Show me a dune that's vegetated. It doesn't exist. If it was vegetated, it wouldn't be a dune. So you're going through and you're planting plants to take away dunes. You aren't revegetating. Vegetation was not originally in open dune areas. So you need to change your policy when it comes to vegetating the dunes for mitigation, because you are changing the ecosystem of that area. The park usage is going up and you're taking away more and more area. I can show you picture after picture of where you've moved the fences in, 20, 30 feet at a time, and nobody ever notices. So that's a big problem. If a fence ever gets moved in, you really need to move another one back in another spot. Those are some of the issues that I have. Ways that you can make the park better and safer is there are mile marker poles going down the beach. There's 8 of them, I believe. Over time, those have dropped down because we're getting more and more sand. They used to be really tall, and pole 1 or 2 is really tall, but all the other ones are 15 feet off the ground, maybe. You can't see them with people camped around them. So you need to come up with a policy to check them year after year, and when they're too low, be able to raise them back up so they can see this is a safety issue, because your ambulances, your rangers, that's how they get around. The same thing with your mile marker poles on Sand Highway. These are the only landmarks we have going through the dunes. So when we try and guide a ranger to an injured person out there, that's all we have is those mile marker poles. They need to be a lot more visible than what they are. The other thing is my group, about 50% of the people at 17,000 members are from the Central Valley area. So we have a very large base in the Central Valley. So you really, if you want to know how people are using the dunes, have a meeting in the Central Valley. It would be critical. These are people that pay taxes and live in California just like everybody else sitting here. Their opinion is as important as anybody else's. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Bill Schlecht. Schlecht, thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bill Schlecht, and I was lucky enough to come through here in 2011. I was unlucky enough to pull at the end of Grand. I thought, man, this is beautiful. So I walked down there and I looked at the beach, and I remember because it was 5:50. I came back to my truck and I had a ticket because parking didn't start until 6 o'clock in the morning. So I missed it by about 10 minutes, but I thought, you're not going to get rid of me that easy. I bought a home off of Elm, and have enjoyed living here ever since. Part of the community. I'm on the dunes nearly every day. I really think that, what people are saying as far as southern access, that would eliminate a whole lot of pressure off of Pier, pressure off of Grand. The dunes are the dunes, and as Nick said, to plant them and grass them means that it isn't a dune, it's a field. So by nature of what it is, I think it is there for us to enjoy. My health actually has improved from coming here. Beautiful weather, beautiful sun. I don't take away from anybody who has an issue, but for reasons of my health, I would appreciate that you leave them open and you give us as much room as possible. The more room actually is going to be better because it spreads people out. So we're operating on a plan. There's the same amount of people who are allowed on the beach. They're just allowed in a much smaller area. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And ask. Is there a Jan or a Jan, perhaps? No? Next is Chris Singh, followed by Lucia Calcinuelo. Okay. Followed by Fred Collins. Is there Chris Singh? Sine?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chris Sine. I work at the Clark Center, the Performing Arts Center here in Arroyo Grande. I'm also an ambassador for the Arroyo Grande Grover Beach Chamber of Commerce. And back last spring, I was fortunate enough to go to a meeting at the chamber where Matt was the speaker there, so it was very nice hearing what he had to say. I live in Napomo. I've lived there for 22 years, raised my family there, and I'm really just here to talk about what the dunes are to our family. My father-in-law grew up fishing here with his father. He raised his kids going up there. In the 50s and 60s, built dune buggies with his brother. My family is here, my two sons, my cousin, his son. Some of my kids' friends are here. The dunes is just such an important place to us. We spend a lot of time out there. We have raised our kids to be good stewards, to haul out what you haul in, to treat it with care, be safe, be smart, and just be mindful of other people out there. We really want to take care of it and see it for our future generations. And it's a challenge, you know. We know there's different opposing views, but we really want to work with our community and see it there for future. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucia, and I should know this because I'm Italian, so forgive me. Can you please spell your last name?
My name is Lucia Casarinovo. I've been a resident of Oceano for 30 years. First of all, I want to uncover your initial lie. You haven't done anything to mitigate the dust problem on the mesa. Parks and Vehicle Division have delayed and delayed and delayed for years. The few bales that you have put on the sand haven't done nothing to protect the health of the people on the mesa. Now, even if you close down a little bit of the dunes, that wouldn't help us residents on Oceano Beach and on Pier Avenue. We also breathe PM10. Thousands of cars go in and out and drive on the beach, and they bring back tons of sand. Sometimes I can't get out of my driveway because it's completely covered with sand that the off-roader and the cars and the ambulance and the fire truck and all the dune buggies bring on Pier Avenue. You need a different entrance. You are guilty of environmental injustice against Oceano, a poor community, 40% Hispanic, uneducated. Now, don't have a meeting in Fresno, please. Have a meeting in Oceano. Have a meeting in Oceano. That's where you're going to hear the people. They don't come over here because they don't speak much Spanish. They're uneducated. They don't have the skills and the knowledge to really say what's going on. So you're guilty of environmental injustice. We are not have been part of any process. That's baloney. That you are involving the community. Look at what you have in the meeting, in Pismo. And yet, you have been using Pier Avenue, the heart of our community, where we could have coffee shops, ice cream parlors, aisle for pedestrians to walk on the beach. We deserve a safe beach, and that means a beach without cars. Pedestrians and cars are not compatible. It's baloney that you can drive millions, thousands of cars on the beach. You can't run. You can't lie down and read your book. You can't sunbathe. You can't have your kids build sandcastles. I want to build sandcastles with my kids on the beach. But you treat our beach as a highway. There is a speed limit. There are chariots going up and down. There are ambulances, fire trucks. It's a highway. And nowhere in the world, pedestrians and cars are compatible on the highway. So that's baloney. You want to surf? You walk on the beach. You want to fish? You walk on the beach. You want to camp? You carry your gear and you walk. Just like when I go to Yosemite and I want to camp in the wilderness, I carry my pack in and out. I don't drive there. So I don't understand why all these people, they have to come here and drive on our beach. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Next, Fred Collins, followed by Bruce Van Val, and then Dan Hensley.
Fred Collins, Tribal Administrator for the Northern Chumash Tribal Council. I and my family have been walking this land for 18,000 years continuously. The dunes have been an amazing place for the Chumash Nation. From Morro Bay all the way down to Carpinteria was one continuous village. We have several hundred village sites within the dune area. As I was a young man, my family would harvest clams down there, and if we were kids, we'd go up into the dunes and play and enjoy them without any danger. This has changed. In 1975, you folks opened up an amusement park on our sacred land. And the product of this amusement park is garbage, death, and more than one. I mean, we've had a lot of deaths on this unbelievable sacred nation's land. And we have to pray for these people. Every time I see somebody dying, we pray for them. This is horrible. You can go on the internet and look at the doctors at the hospitals around here when they talk about the trauma cases that are coming in from these dunes. Kids, unbelievably maimed, unbelievably broken bones. Unbelievable. And this is in addition to the folks that live down there that have horrible issues with the dust. Since 1975, you folks have been a part of the agencies of this United States government that have continued the cultural genocide of the indigenous people of this land. You have utterly failed in your mission to protect the environmental issues along this coastline and along this park. We have for years been talking to you folks about how we can change this, how we can come up with solutions to make it better for everybody. We can't go back. But that park, you have missed the issue. That is a diamond. The dunes are a diamond in the rough down there. And you missed it. You put vehicles on it rather than souls and people and walking and enjoying it. You don't have to ride in a vehicle to have your families enjoy that place. It is a sacred land. Do your job and do it right. You have all the laws and regulations, some of the best regulations on the books, but you don't follow them. Do a better job.
Thank you. Next, Bruce Van Vo.
Good evening. My name is Bruce. My business is Finn's Seafood Restaurant in Pismo, State Beach Golf Course. I have a lot of expertise in these fields since I've managed many national parks. The last park before moving here was Mount Rushmore. Helped manage Yellowstone and Grand Canyon. In every park, there are a lot of people who want to shut down the parks. Even in Yellowstone, we used to have people say, let's just shut it back, turn it back to nature. I've heard a lot of people today talk about walking on the beach. What happens if you can't walk on the beach? What happens if you're too old to walk on the beach? Do we just say it's for the healthy? For the people who can walk in? For the people who don't need wheelchairs? For the people who don't need vehicles? We shouldn't let the ones with no legs, with no arms recreate, right? So only the ones that can walk on the beach, that's the ones we should allow. That's why there's got to be a balance. There are little children out there every day. There are families out there every day. And everybody talks about the deaths on the beach. Yes, there are deaths on the beach. And I can promise you, if you close the dunes, if you put it where there's no dune buggies, people will find a way to dune buggy. And you will have 5 times as many deaths. Because they will find it in the creeks and the beds in which they live. It will be unregulated. As far as the state of California and the Parks Department, they do an incredible job. If you call them and there's an accident, they're there immediately. I had a son of mine break his back in the middle of this summer, doing what he loves to do, dune buggy. You won't be able to do it again, but at least he'll be able to go out on the dunes and recreate and go fish and surf. Because just like Yellowstone, the healthy shouldn't be the only ones who are allowed to go on the dunes. So yeah, I'd like to walk on the dunes. People I know can't walk on the dunes. I really would like to say that the local state parks does an exceptional job, and I've seen them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are at 8 o'clock. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we will have Dan Hensley, and I will figure out the name of the next two people. Bob Cardona and Dick Harris. So please be back by 8:10. Thank you very much.